This is Luke Rudkowski of WeAreChange.org here at the Free Your Mind Conference. I am joined by the one and only Mark Passio. We're going to be talking about epigenetics and population control. Now, obviously, if you have studied history and looked into history, we know that the Rockefeller family has defrauded the scientific community, paid them off to create scientific documents that Hitler used and implemented eugenics. We know that the United Nations also had vaccination programs and depopulation programs, sterilization programs all over the third world. But there's another form of eugenics that Mark Passio is going to get into, and it's epigenetics. Now, what is epigenetic eugenics? Because it's a mouthful in itself, but what is it?
Well, this requires two understandings, and the first is epigenetics. Epigenetics is an emerging branch of science that deals with human biology, psychology, and physiology integrated with human consciousness. Understanding that genes are not actually who we are. Genes are a tendency for biological expression. However, since gene expression is preceded by consciousness, consciousness is capable of fundamentally altering gene expression. So in other words, we're not the code, we are the authors of the code, we are the writers of the code. We can actually change the expression biologically, psychologically, physiologically if we change human consciousness. That's epigenetics. Now, of course, eugenics is population control. It is breeding into society certain characteristics that you want to see expressed if you're the eugenicist, and you're breeding out other characteristics in the population that you do not want expressed in the population. You're also directly trying to control fertility, directly trying to control birth rates. So we're combining these two concepts, epigenetics with eugenics, and I've truncated and coined the term epi-eugenics, which means to go beyond classical eugenics. Classical eugenics, of course, being sterilization methods, actually culling the population physically. We're talking about now doing it through consciousness. In other words, getting the human herd to cull itself is how I coin it. What you're doing is you are manipulating the characteristics and traits that particularly the female of the population finds attractive in a partner, so that you are ultimately long-term controlling the expressions, the characteristics and traits that are expressed in that target population. I call this epi-eugenics or epigenetic eugenics.
Now, as we know, Hitler just murdered people. The United Nations supposedly was giving aid to third world countries, but really sterilized them in Peru and all over the third world. But now these elites are using kind of different ploys. You were talking about so many different things, whether it's testosterone or whether it's societal pressures. Right. But what do you think is the biggest kind of subliminal eugenics being used against us now that's the most important?
The biggest epi-eugenics program that is being waged on humanity is the neo-feminism movement. The idea that you are going to actually set and control the perceptions of what the human female finds attractive and or desirable in a potential mating partner. And what you want to do is get them opposed to the idea of someone who is a person who has very strong feelings for human freedom, that is outspoken on those topics, is the rebel type, is a person who will not stand down and will assert their rights and stand up to the state. And a lot of women are being conditioned to find this as non-attractive and to want to steer away from it and shy away from men like that, because they look at it like that's dangerous and that's not in our long-term survival interest, because you're going up against an organization that they know at a very subconscious level is violent and dangerous. So this is part of the whole neo-feminism agenda, which is what I have been talking about as part of my two presentations here at the Free Your Mind 4 conference, helping people to explain that what this eugenics program is ultimately about is steering the perceptions of what people in society generally find acceptable or attractive. Once you control things at that level, you are ultimately controlling the mechanism for biological expression, which is human sexuality and reproduction.
Yeah. And as I could tell you in the dating field, it's a messed up world out there, and it's definitely being convoluted by a lot of top-down pressure. But one of the things you said about testosterone and the chemical war that's going against natural testosterone, which was in higher levels in human beings before, but now is in lower and lower levels. Can you just talk about the importance of testosterone and the chemical kind of warfare that's being waged against us?
Absolutely. Great question. Testosterone is a hormone that is found in both men and women and is responsible for vitality, strength, sex drive, overall wellness. And, if it's absent in a man, the man becomes feminized, he becomes docile, becomes complacent, loses energy, loses drive, loses will. That's what they want. They want a weakened, feminized male population. And if hormonal levels of testosterone are low in the female population, very similar things result: depression, overall vitality loss, will loss, sex drive loss. These are things that keep the population low, but moreover than that, it keeps the population weakened. That's ultimately what they want. They don't want a strong, independent thinking population, because those are the people who are most likely to rebel against an immoral control system.
And doctors are also lowering the natural rate of testosterone silently, so we don't know exactly what the right, levels are. Now, of course, Mark has been given like a 2-hour talk in there, so we're only giving you a small snippet of this whole bigger picture here. But you're also going to be talking about the solutions. And now, obviously, we can't get into your 4-hour talk in just this minute, but just quickening it down, making it just relatable. What do you think is, a possible solution to get rid of the current eugenics that's being used against the people?
I think one of the things is just discussing these issues openly and putting them on the table for consideration. There's a lot of social taboos, and there's a lot of politically correct speech that is enforced by ourselves in our society. We're our own policemen, you could say. I think part of it, one of the main solutions that I'm going to present here tonight, is saying no to politically correct speech and just putting these issues out on the table, regardless of how uncomfortable they may be. And in order to do that, we have to get over our own fear of social ostracization. So that's just one of the solutions I'm going to present amongst many others this evening.
Of course. Now, last thing I wanted to get into, because I heard you were talking last night that you were a part of the Church of Satan.
Yes.
Can you just talk about that a little bit? And from your experience and your backdrop, leaving that institution, do you consider the people who are in charge now, the elites, satanic individuals?
Great question. Well, due to disillusionment in my religious upbringing when I was young, I flocked to the dark occultism, which of course simply means hidden knowledge. That's what the word occult means. And one of the groups that I became involved with was the Church of Satan, which, as I would describe it, is a very, very low level on the totem pole organization connected with the overall worldwide hierarchy of satanic groups that has ultimately infiltrated their way into just about every social institution. When I became involved with this organization at a low level, they were kind of psychologically vetting you for further involvement in, I guess you could call it the overarching hierarchical network of dark occult groups that are really running things from behind the scenes. That's where the real power lies in our society. And when I realized that this wasn't just a group working with occult knowledge for their own benefit on a personal level, but they were working as a very tight-knit unit behind the scenes with every institutional walk of life, every human institution, education, politics, law, banking, military, media, entertainment, etc., scientific community, so forth. And I recognized that their agenda was the diminishing and ultimate eradication of individual rights and human freedom. I could not proceed with further involvement with them. They were never any of my goals. I just wanted some, personal power because I had knowledge that other people didn't have. That is what egoically drove me back then into involvement with occult organizations. And when I realized that it was much, much bigger than what I had thought it was, and it involved an agenda to eradicate human freedom, I decided I'm going to blow the whistle on this and start talking about this openly, and put my knowledge about what this is all about out there on the table for other people's consideration. And the answer to the second part of your question is absolutely the people who are behind the scenes. Their religion, they have a religion. A religious belief system is driving the worldwide control system, and that belief system is fundamentally the ideology known as Satanism, which is not what people think it is. It is about 100% pure selfishness taken to the extreme. extreme. It is about moral relativism, not believing in any objective standards of right and wrong behavior or natural rights. And it is ultimately social Darwinism and eugenics applied to the population of mankind. That's what Satanism really is.
Wow. Throughout history, elites have been calling for population control and eugenics, and obviously if you're calling for that, some satanic order has to be behind the scenes. They're still in power. They're still silently having population control. Mark Passio, thank you so much for all this great information. The link to your website will be in the description below, and
Luke,
thank you
so
for all
much.
this
We
information.
are exposing them. That's what the Free Your Mind Conference is all about. That's what your work is all about. I applaud you and salute you for doing what you do. Thanks so much for having me.
No problem. Thank you, brother.